Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 5th day of June, 2023. Well, I hope you've all had a good weekend. We're still not completely done planting. I've got to transplant tomatoes today, and I've got to put in my broccoli. I'm going to do seeds and my cabbage because I want them to come up in a little bit later here. They do really well if we do that. We can't really put stuff in the early spring like you would normally be able to do in the lower elevations. We're at about 3,000 feet above sea level, so that just doesn't work out. We're still getting frost and sometimes snow, and so we just can't do that. And so those kinds of things we like to plant by seed, so they come up a little bit later, and then they head up a little bit later when it starts to cool down. And so, plus by then the beans will be up, and I'm going to plant them in the bean beds and on one side of them, and they'll provide some shade and some filtered light for them. Plus, I'm going to put one of those black shade things over the hoop house. I'm going to put one of those on there to kind of cool things down out there too. But that's what we're doing right now, and we're finishing that up over the next couple of days, and then I think the entire garden's planted. So yay! Anyway, if this is your first time here, welcome. What I'm going to do, if you've come back, thank you so much. I hope you'll click subscribe and come back. And if you want to check out my blog, Stepping Aside, the web address is imsteppingaside.com. I am steppingaside.com, not I am. If you forget, click on Show More, and it opens up this little box under the video, and it has a bunch of stuff in it, links and a description of what this is. But at the top is my website address, so you can just, if you forget, you can go look there. But anyway, the rune for today that's going to get us started out on the as above side of things from the Elder Futhark is Othala. We've had Othala before. Did we have it last week? Oh, we did. We had it Monday last week. We had Othala and Conjunctio. So I wonder if we'll pull Conjunctio again. Anyway, this is Othala. Othala is made up of essentially Ingus and Gebo, the diamond and then the X. And so basically what Othala means, Othala is the very last rune of the Elder Futhark, and it's basically tradition. It's an earth element rune, it's sacred space, it's inheritance, it's protection, it's everything that culminates in our life of all of our learning as while we're here. And so that's, you could even think of it as maybe the Akashic record of our life, the more physical one. But you're talking about security, tradition, loyalty, a certain type of balance. But it's the growth that leads to everything that we learn all throughout our lifetime here. Again, if you look at the thing, in fact, I have it here. Here we go. Here we have it exploded out. You see Othala in the center there, the rune itself. You see Kenaz, here's Kenaz over here, and it's in its forward direction, but you see it everywhere. And literally, Kenaz is the light of spirit. It's the torch. It's clarity. It's higher awareness. It's a fire rune, but it's something in this case where spirit is informing with Ingus and concentrating that energy to then expand outward into creation, into manifestation. And then down below where you have Gebo, the X rune, you're looking at then expressing all of that outward. And so it's kind of a combination, inward and outward expression. So again, as above, so below. Invoking spirit within and then expressing it outward in your life to create that tradition, to create that security, to create that family structure, that and whether or not it's an actual family or whether it's people you populate into your family, it doesn't matter. It's just you have this tribe basically, and Othala is the end result of that. And so let's go ahead, though, and take a look at the Geomancy rune. We'll throw down the 4 elemental runes. Each one is coded to its own element. There's going to be a single dot on one side and 2 on the other. The single dot's going to give an active influence. The dual dot will give a more passive influence. And so we'll see how this goes. We'll throw them down and we'll see what we have. And I'll put them in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. And so we have Cauda Draconis. Now in Geomancy, there's 8 concepts. and you have both sides of the coin, essentially. So there's 16 runes. Kata Draconis is one half of Kata and Caput Draconis. Caput would be the north node of the moon and the future, whereas Kata Draconis is the south node of the moon, and so you're looking at the effect of karma or even just past experience on the present moment, whereas Caput is going to be your destiny and what's going to happen in the future. So right now we're talking about the past, and bringing past awareness into this Othala experience. And so what is that going to be? Is it going to be governed by higher awareness, or is it going to be governed by the ego? And how are you going to populate the Othala experience in your life? Because it's not just going to be totally, it's not like the ego's not part of that. It is. Because it's in part, it's involved in the decisions we make and in the direction we go in life and all of that, and whether or not it's going to be successful, or whether we're going to be struggling all the time and fighting against the flow, basically. And really the flow that we're fighting against is we're fighting against the ego trying to take over the situation instead of allowing higher awareness to govern your decisions and perceptions, understanding that we are souls that inhabit these bodies, and we're not the ego. We are in a sense, but not in terms of the truth of who we are, because once we're no longer in these bodies, the ego is not defining anything at that point. And so you see, we can, the ego can learn a thing or two, as we transmute, ego into spirit. It can do that. And grow along with everything else, but we don't always do that. So anyway, I cut the cards, and I've taken them from the bottom deck. And what we have here today, we have actually 2 elemental water influences, one with the 5 of Cups and one with the High Priestess. And the other is the 10 of Pentacles, and so that's going to be the earth element. And so it's going to be very Othala-like. Let's see what we have. We have a 1, so one numerology for the 10 of Pentacles, a 5, so that's 6. 6 and 2 is 8. And so 8 would be material recognition and approval. It would be leadership, a higher level of harmony. And again, that being a leader that can then bring people together in a collaborative way, maybe. So that's part of what the 8's all about. But essentially, let's go ahead and let's just start out reading it as it is. And then if we need to move them around, we will. These cards around, we will. But let's look at the 10 of Pentacles. Here we see the 10 coins that are out front here of the scene, in the shape of the tree of life from the Kabbalah. You start out here, and I don't remember if you go here first and then here, but you've got this upper area that's all higher stuff. I can't do that very well, like here. And then the rest of it, once you come down through the abyss, then you really start getting into the different spheres that govern your lower behavior, you're in the physical realm as this manifests. It's like a vortex in a way, I see it as, but I don't do the Kabbalah stuff, so I don't know for sure how they would see, how somebody who actually follows that would see it. But just from a energetic perspective, it's kind of what it reminds me of. That flow downward into spirit, or from spirit into form rather. And here you see, if you look beyond that, you see an older man. It could be the king, we don't know, but an older man with his dogs. And the families come to visit. You see a lovely archway here. You see the coat of arms of the family. You see that's a little more balance there, the black and white. The checkered thing is it kind of about balance, dark and bringing together dark and light aspects of self together. But here, let me see if I can see something here. You see a lot of grapes on the ground, so that he has a lot of abundance. This is a very complex card because it's like you see mom and dad, and you see, if you look way, 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 way over here, you're going to see there in I think they have blue on, because you can see his little feet right down there. There's a child right there. And so the families come to visit the dad, essentially. And when you see this archway and they're standing either just under it or just beyond it, it's difficult to tell there. But they're right there in that area. This is a card of transition. This is the card of passage, the passing of legacy. And so it's a very Othala type card. And I think that it's kind of like, I mean, ultimately, if there was one card within the tarot deck that basically aligns the best with Othala, I would say it's the Ten of Pentacles. Again, both are earth element divination methods, basically, the rune and the tarot card. And I just think that it's that's what this is. Now we also see, now that looks kind of like a oh, I don't know what that is. It's some kind of a staff of some kind, a little pole that's leaning up against the archway. You can kind of see it right there. I don't know if it's like if it's, to me, it may be something like passing the torch, even though it's not a torch, but it's like you're passing the baton onto the next person in the relay. Well, it's basically the same thing when you're passing on legacy, when you're giving your inheritance. Maybe if he is the king, if he's the family patriarch, whatever he is, he's stepping back and he's passing the torch or passing the baton onto his son or his daughter or his son-in-law and daughter. Or whatever he is, he's kind of got his back to his father. So that may be significant. Maybe he's ready to move into that type of a place in the family where people are looking to him to kind of guide the family. And I realize that's not really what happens so much these days, but it's that passage of legacy. You know, our boys are in their early 40s, and so it's not that, you know, we're passing the legacy on to them, but it might be in terms of just being there to give advice if they need it, or to just sit back and marvel at who they've become. You know, because just in doing that, you see yourself in them. You see yourself in your grandchildren. You see your children in your grandchildren. And so it's that connection between everybody in the family that you can actually see unfolding. I use the word basically when I talk. It's one of the words I use. I don't know why, but you know, basically I do that, right? So does my youngest son. And now his 5-year-old, almost 6-year-old daughter is doing the same thing. And I'm listening to her last weekend or weekend before last, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I see so many similarities between us and this child. It's interesting how that passes along. So it could be something even as simple as that, but understanding that movement through life, it's going to basically, see, there you go. It's going to involve basically Othala and Cauda Draconis, both the past influencing the present and the tradition and that we pass on to our family. And again, family can be comprised of anything, really. It maybe they're not blood relatives, but you have this core group of people that you've been with all your life, and it's, you know, you take on one another's characteristics sometimes, and you learn from one another. And so whether it's actual blood relatives or not, it doesn't really matter. I think that there's a lot of folks these days that create their own family because maybe their family life, maybe their parents are gone, or maybe they were an only child, or maybe the home life wasn't as fun as they might have wanted it to be. It might have been difficult growing up. And so they create their own family later on. They create their own Othala, in other words, using the past or the influence of Cauda Draconis in creating all of that and defining that for themselves. And so also inherent with this, with 10 reducing to 1, you also have the sense of new beginnings with this card. And so something about the passage onto other people. I know one example that had to do with the reading itself. It was like it was a work situation where maybe you're moving in, maybe you're leaving the job and you're retiring, or you're moving into another place as part of the business or something. But you've trained people enough that whoever's going to take your place from within, basically, they're ready to do that. So again, it's the passage of something on, of your past experience, onto something else. Now, then we come to the Five of Cups. The Five of Cups, well, it would be nice if my phone wasn't, no, we don't want to do that. Okay. I think it'll be fine now. Now watch, it'll give me, they're giving me weather notifications. Yes, I know the pollen is over 10. Yes, I know. It was crazy yesterday. But anyway, here we have a man in a black cape. He's looking at the ground. He's got 3 cups that are turned over. 2 are behind him. He doesn't see them. You see some water running here, a little creek or something right here. You see the castle or home off in the distance there. This is disappointment. Something has changed in his life, and there's some disappointment. So maybe he didn't get what he wanted here. Maybe this experience wasn't as fulfilling as he wanted it to be. Maybe the dad is not ready yet to pass the baton, or we may end up actually. Well, no, we'll keep it the way it is. I was going to say maybe we'll move the cards around, but I don't know. I think we'll be all right. We might have to take one more card, though, to give a little more definition to this one. In fact, I think I will before I move to the High Priestess. But here, he's a bit bereft. He doesn't quite know what to do. He's just standing there. He's just accepting what's going on here. And he doesn't really have the ability to process things very well here. There's just been so much change. Obviously, he's standing on one side of the little creek. The house is on the other. So maybe something's happened. Maybe he's had to leave the home or something. Maybe something's happening in the home that he just doesn't feel a part of. And again, if it's about, and again, this doesn't have to be about home. This about work. Maybe you were wanting a promotion that you're not going to get now, and you're having to deal with that level of disappointment. Something has changed, and what you expected would happen is not going to happen now, and you have to process that. You have to come to terms with that. The bridge is still there, though. You see the bridge over here, this arched bridge here. It's still, the home is still available. So there's something that's still there, but maybe he's just disappointed enough he can't see it. But with 5, there's some change. There's maybe some protection. 5 is also about variety. It's also about the pentagram. It's about freedom versus restriction. And so maybe he's having to process a little bit of that. Which leads us then to the High Priestess. Well, you know what? Before that leads us to the High Priestess, let's go ahead and I'm going to shuffle the deck, and I'm going to take one more card. Just to modify this 5 to see if we can find out a little bit more about maybe why he's upset. But he can't see what he has still emotionally, the emotional support or emotional security he has with those 2 cups behind him. He's not even looking at them, and they're still upright. They're not turned over. The contents aren't spilled out. It's still there for him if he can still see it. And that may align then with the bridge that is still there to his home, to his tradition, to his sacred space, basically. I'm going to take the 13th one. I was born on the 13th of October, and 13 things happen to me in 13s. I don't know. They just do. Well, here, this is going to align very, very well with the High Priestess, I think. Here we have a hand reaching out from the clouds, holding a big chalice. And you see the Dove of Peace dropping a disc in it with a cross on it, which basically, indicates this, and we'll talk about that here in a second. This guy is not seeing things right. He's not perceiving things. He's reacting emotionally to things, and he needs to have a new level of emotional genesis here. He needs to either develop compassion or adaptation or adapting to change. Cups, again, is the water element, and water invokes change. It's movement, it's momentum, but it's also compassion and empathy and empathic awareness. But here, and it's interesting that you have, I want to point this out, you've got 5 streams. As the dove of peace drops us in, you have 5 streams of water nourishing the lily pond below. Okay, so this is the waters of emotional fulfillment, the waters of emotional balance, if you will. That side of the elemental equation here. And so how he's seeing this, even though something has changed, so we've got the 5 there, we also have the 5 here. It doesn't have to be something that's going to, destroy him emotionally. It could be that he simply cannot see what he still has, which is the 2 cards back here, or 2 cards, the 2 cups back here. He can't see what he has. And so it's interesting that there's an element of the 5 found in the Ace of Cups as well. And so if we're looking at 1, 5, that's 6, 7, 8, this comes to 9. You're looking at a numerology of spirituality, generosity, endings, and completion. So it's like with the 8 of Cups, you're putting your emotions in order. You're getting everything you've learned, everything you can leave behind, all sort of right there, as the guy then is taking a new path away from all of that, taking what he can with him to prepare him for his future endeavors, but leaving behind that which no longer serves. So it's kind of a dual purpose there with that particular card. But here, I think if we're going to modify the 5 and the Ace together, I think that what he needs is a new emotional perspective here. Whatever's happening, he may be so caught up in his emotions that, again, he can't see what he still has, the support that he still has here. And the internal emotional support that he has within himself. He doesn't seem to understand that he is just caught up at this point. And so the answer then is to allow new emotional awareness. And where you're going to get that, this is indicating the unseen hand is indicating spirit or higher awareness or the soul. And so that needs to come in and soothe whatever the ego is doing to this man, and to be able to see things from a higher perspective so that he knows that he really does have something left. He's not alone. He doesn't have to be this caught up in what's going on. I mean, I'm sure it's upsetting, and so you deal with it, but you don't become so caught up with it you can't, because he's not moving. He's not going anywhere. And so I think that, whereas the legacy here that we're trying to deal with, we're dealing with a movement, if you will. But maybe it didn't happen the way he thought it was going to. And so now he has to understand that he really has more emotional strength and security than he really understands, especially if he lets go of the ego's response and allows for higher awareness to inform all of it. He can get a different perspective. Maybe things are not as bad as he believes that they are. And to reinforce that, we see the High Priestess. Now, the High Priestess is about intuition and wisdom and the feminine divine. It's about revelation and compassion and balance. You see her, again, here you have the tree of life manifested here with the coins. You also have it behind her with the I think these are pomegranates. I've always read them as pomegranates. But it's the same pattern behind her as it is here. So it's almost like you start out, because she's part of the beginning. You've got the Fool that is the 0 card. And then you have the Magician, which is card 1, and the High Priestess, which is card 2. The Magician takes care of the form that the Fool will take when the Fool takes the leap into physical reality. But then the subconscious side of self is governed by the High Priestess. And so those two come together and do what they do to create the body, create the experience, experience for the soul, for the fooled, essentially, or the soul, to come into. Okay, and then from there, the Empress gives birth to creation. And then her consort, the Emperor, comes next. And so it all takes place in those first 3 cards, along with the Fool, where everything comes into play, everything that you're here to learn, everything that you're here to do. All that whole theme, the details are going to be part of the daily experience, but the overall theme is what is taken care of by the Fool, the magician, and the High Priestess. And then from there, again, the Empress gives birth to your creation, basically to who you are, to the baby, basically. But here we have the goddess, or the woman. She has I say goddess because she's got the crown of maiden, mother, and crone on her head. Again, you see this same cross again that you see here with the dove of peace. So there's a lot of connectivity between almost every card here. Here she sits between the 2 pillars of dark and light, Boaz and Joachim. She has 1 foot on the maiden moon. So again, this is a new creation. She holds the Torah on her lap, which is the word of the Creator. And again, she shows the drape behind her, shows that flow, from here, the three at the top. She's part of that experience, right? The planning, basically the planning committee of what's going to happen here when this soul comes into form, and represented by the Fool. And so basically this is about dealing with the balance between dark and light, between ego and spirit. It's about understanding the triplicities of things. Triplicities are things like past, present, future, mind, body, spirit, the interrelationship between the energy of life, essentially. And everything is done in balance, or we hope it is anyway. But here, not so much. And he needs to return to a higher level of balance, understanding that the emotions that he's caught up in right now really don't reflect spirit. They really don't reflect an overall understanding of what's really going on. Sometimes we get caught up in things, we're upset, we create that for ourselves. We don't really, in other words, we manufacture it in our minds, and we get ourselves so upset about this and that, when it's really a choice of how to see it. And he is obviously seeing something in a way that's not taking in the entire picture. Not when you've got 3 cups on the ground and he's either looking at them, he doesn't even look like he's looking at them. He looks like he's looking more kind of out over here. But see, he doesn't see these 2. He doesn't see what he still has left. And so, and that's because the ego's taken over, and he's seeing things from a very subjective perspective. And in doing so, he may not realize he has the family he has, or he may not realize he has the support system he has. And if you want to look at it that way. And so the Othala experience sort of escapes him, and he's not understanding how because let's face it, this could be the Kata Draconis side of things here, where what you'd really know, what the past that you really know is there, you're ignoring it, and you're refusing to see. You're all caught up in a pity party, maybe, and you're upset about this or that, but how much of that is of your own making, and how much of it do you really have a little more control over? The reading would suggest that you have more control than what you think you have. You do have some kind of material legacy, some sacred space, some level of support that's there for you. And if you can't see it, then you have to step away from whatever's happening here and realize there is a home there. There is a bridge to that home. There is an emotional support aspect here that you're not seeing. And and the idea is that you've become out of balance, and you need to have higher awareness come in and basically right the ship, reestablish that balance, a more healthy balance where you can see all that you really do have. And so you don't feel alone, and you don't feel unsupported, and you feel like there's a support system you can reach out to. Clearly the kids coming home to visit grandpa, well, the support system is clearly there. You see all the abundance everywhere. You see the two dogs that he has here. They love him. There's a relationship there that's been built, just like there likely has been a relationship that's been built here. He's just caught up and he can't see it. So I think for today, it's a higher balance that needs to be struck. Being aware of not allowing the ego to run amok and define everything for you, to not feel like you're alone, to not feel like there's nobody there for you, because there very likely is, and you're just forgetting about it. You're not seeing it at the moment because whatever's happened has gotten you caught up in it, and you're upset about it, and you can't really see any way out of it except that there probably is. Even if it's going and talking to someone that maybe is even outside your family. You wouldn't consider them part of the family, but somehow they're the person you go to when you really need to talk to somebody about something. Maybe it's an older person like what you see here in the 10. Maybe it's somebody, who has a little more age to them. And maybe it's a neighbor that you know. Well, they're part of your tribe, whether you realize it or not. They really are. So when you think you don't have somebody, sit down and get out of the moment of it all, and maybe you're going to find that you really do. And maybe they can give you the advice or emotional support that you need, that clearly this guy's not getting. It's not to say that something didn't happen, because the 5 is saying yes, it did, that something changed in his life. But either but again, it can be manufactured by each one of us. You can look at a situation, choose to get upset about it, when the other people have no idea why you're upset at all. They will be like, why do you think that's going on? That's not going on. That's not how I feel. That's not what I'm doing. And yet you've defined it that way, and you're all upset. You've gotten yourself upset about something. Well, we all do that. I mean, we do. We jump to the wrong conclusion, and it upsets us. And then we want to blame the other person when they've really done nothing to give us that impression. We've chosen it. We've seen it from the ego side of things. We've seen it from a place of insecurity, maybe. It maybe something happened and you like, oh, I know what that is. Well, maybe you don't. And that's whenever I see that card, that's how I view this. It's like, okay, there's something going on here, some perspective that really doesn't reflect the truth. And he's all caught up here, and he can't really see the forest for the trees, basically. And again, to realize that you have, more support than even going and talking to a parent or an aunt or an uncle or somebody that's just older than you, that's had more experience, that can maybe say, well, I can maybe give you a little different perspective to think about. And sometimes that's all it takes. And you can then go, oh, okay, you can put things in perspective, and you're ready to move forward again. And so I think that that's what this is talking about, especially when you're talking about tradition and family and everything that we have with Othala in our lives, letting the past come in. And in this case, the past, I think, is maybe a different perspective, maybe from what you remember, or maybe what you can, look at on your own, but maybe it's going to come from somebody else, like this guy here, like the dad in the father in this card, where the wisdom that person has can maybe provide you a different perspective, can maybe open some doors to other ideas, other solutions. But again, another way of seeing it, when we have the Ace of Cups modifying the 5 of Cups, it's basically saying you need a new way of experiencing this emotionally. Life is filled with emotional triggers. It's just what happens. And we fall into that trap of responding to them. And instead of being able to see a situation objectively, we don't. We react to it emotionally, and oftentimes it's due to some kind of a trigger, possibly, learned in childhood. And all of a sudden you're back there, and you can't see it any other way. Well, you have to be able to do that. And you have to get outside the ego's reaction to make that happen. So it's pretty esoteric reading to start us out on a Monday. But, I don't know. This is just a really strange time we find ourselves in. And it is emotionally triggering for a lot of people, whether it has to do with what's happening in our own families, or in our communities, or in our governments, or what have you. There's fear, there's worry, there's concern, there's all kinds of things. And when you get caught up in it, it's kind of hard to see the bigger picture. And I think that that's really what this is talking about. So if this resonates for you, then realize that if you're feeling triggered like that, it's a sign to step away. If you have to take a walk in nature, do some meditation, something to get you out of. Go work in the garden. That always helps me. I get starting to plant things. I'm weeding things. Pretty soon, if I was upset, I'm not upset anymore. So it's getting yourself out of that mindset, that emotional based mindset, to be able to then see things a little more clearly, that you really do have some kind of structure there that's for you, just for you, that's there to support you. And you might have to look for it, but it's there. And bring everything back into a better as above, so below balance for yourself. And where spirit is and soul is actually controlling things a little more than the ego is. The ego wants to, but the soul's got to be the parent here and say, well, I actually had some things I needed to accomplish here, so let me go do that for a while, and you can just watch. And maybe you'll learn a little something, Mr. Ego or Miss Ego, and maybe you'll not be quite so reactive the next time. Maybe you'll sit back and wait and observe a little bit more before you start reacting all over the place. I'm guilty of it. My husband's guilty of it. One of my sons is really guilty of it, but he probably doesn't see it that way. But it's the reaction of things. It's part of our nature, inherent, in who we are. And some of us struggle a little more with it than others do. But it's a struggle. And so have some compassion for yourself and realize that this is just a moment of growth, of inner growth, and take it for what it is. So anyway, that's it. We've gone long enough here for a Monday. Thanks for watching. And again, the week ahead is out on the blog. So is the correspondences for Work and Magic for the week. I think, is it the Two of Pentacles? No, I forget what the Exploring Tarot one is. But that's also up. You can find me over on Substack, on Medium, and on Patreon as well. But I'd love you to go see the blog. I'm pretty proud of it. I've been doing it since 2012, and it's had a few incarnations along the way, but I really like it. Everything's working right now too. I had a period of I had an app on there that was causing everything to slow down and not load, and I'm just like, oh geez. And of course, they're the ones I'm calling to find out, well, what's going on? It was like, well, they didn't want to tell me it was their app, but I'm pretty sure it was their app. So anyway, I took that off, and suddenly it's working. It's not freezing and saying, oh, stepping aside is down. Oh, stepping aside is back online, and all that nonsense. It's like I went through that for months, and finally I did some research, and people are like saying, yeah, don't use that app. Sure enough, now it's fine. Anyway, that's what you do when you have a website and you're the webmaster. You have to figure it all out on your own. So anyway, and hopefully I have, but anyhow, thanks for watching, and come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.